We've talked a lot in the past on the channel about one of my favorite systems, the Apple IIe, but one of the things that that system had as far as shortcomings was the onboard sound capabilities that were part of the system. We've got a couple of games that we really wanted to try here at Vintage Geek that require a little bit more in the sound department, so today we're going to try to build and assemble a working Mockingbird and then try a couple of really unique games for the Apple II. If you're into vintage computers, we make videos like this each and every week here at Vintage Geek, so please like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow. Back in 1981, a company called Sweet Microsystems was developing external sound cards and soundboards for computers at the time. Now, one of the things that the Apple II was lacking was really true multi-voice sound support. You had the built-in speaker with the Apple II system that did an admirable job, especially with the software that was available, but some pieces of software really required a little bit more, especially when you got into the world of kind of doing music construction, that kind of thing, getting into multi-voice sound. So we wanted to try a couple of pieces of software here at Vintage Geek that require that extra level of support, and in order to do that, we needed an external card or another third-party add-on for the Apple II. The Mockingbird seemed like the logical choice.
Yeah, Mockingbird.
Now I said Mockingbird. The Mockingbird was Sweet Microsystems product that was designed for the Apple II. It gave it multi-voice compatibility. Now we actually don't have an original Mockingbird here at the museum. It's one of the things that we're looking to acquire, but I thought it would be kind of fun. There's a company that came out with a new version of the Mockingbird a couple of years back, Reactive Microsystems. We ordered a brand new one in kit form, and we're going to try to build this from scratch, put the Mockingbird in our Apple II, and see what we can do with a couple of these great pieces of software today. So I have here the full kit from Reactive Micro for the Mockingbird version 2.2. As I understand it, this is the exact same design as the original board with possibly a few tweaks, but it's all in kit form, and it's been a while since I built an electronic kit, so I thought this would be kind of fun today. Also, it's kind of nice to put something brand new into a vintage machine, so that's kind of a fun little treat as well. All the components in this kit came very nicely labeled. All the resistors came in individual packages, so those are easier to find, and everything's really nicely labeled on the board itself, so this shouldn't be too difficult. There weren't a lot of instructions that came with it. Hopefully everything will make sense as we start to load the board up here and get things put in. I'm going to start with the actual IC sockets first, just because I know that's going to be the most tedious part, to get all those in the board and soldered in, and I'm not worried about overheating any pins at this point because there won't be any chips in the socket, conveniently. Let me get started here and see if we can start building our Mockingbird, or our mocking build, as it were.
Buy me a Mockingbird.
Alright, so I'm going to start with the larger IC sockets here. I think if I put both of these in at once, it'll make it a nice level surface for soldering. As soon as I get a couple of pins soldered on here, it should kind of keep things where they're not at least falling out of the board. The key is to get all four corners in, and once you got that, then everything's kind of solid so you can get the rest of them in. I'm just going to try to get all of these sockets at least in place so that I can kind of solder them all at one time. Looks like these two 8-pin sockets are for op amps that are probably the actual audio amplifier chips that could be used to drive small speakers. I believe the output of this board is actually a stereo output, I think. One last socket here. All right, now all the sockets are actually in the board, so I'm going to go ahead and solder the rest of the pins on these. This is where things get a little tedious. It's like building Legos. Getting things soldered in can be relaxing. Avoid getting any of those cold solder joints where things don't quite mesh up right. They're so small sometimes it's hard to tell. All right, we've got all of our IC sockets are fully soldered in, so now we just need to pack the board with all the rest of the components and get those soldered in so we can get this going. So I guess I'm going to start with the left-hand side of the board. So we got some resistors we need to put in here. Got a 1K resistor to start with, 0.1 microfarad capacitor. Yeah, I have to assume that this large bag of multiple capacitors, these have all got to be 0.1s, just based on the quantity that are on this board. Kind of working my way across the top of the board here. I'm going to start trimming these connectors in the back. I will say the board is very nicely labeled. Everything's clear as far as the values of all the components, which is very helpful. Need a couple of diodes down here. I'm going to put these diodes in the board. Have to be really careful to watch polarity on these because I was not paying attention to that at first and almost put the cathode on the wrong side, which would have been a problem. Okay, we need a couple of more resistors. Get all of these soldered in. Starting to have the semblance of an assembled board here. At least we got the left-hand side kind of fully packed. See if we can get the rest of this done here. On this side of the board, things get quite a bit more tight. Fairly dense area filled with resistors and a few capacitors. Go ahead and try to get that all soldered so we can clean up that section. It looks like these are for the actual audio amplifier section. should be the single 5 picofarad capacitor. That's easy enough. We've got these electrolytic capacitors, which we should definitely try to make sure that we get the polarity right on these, because that could be bad if we don't. Thankfully, they're well labeled. Have to assume these electrolytics are probably filter capacitors for the power supply voltage going to the card. I don't know for sure. All right, and we just have our 10 microfarad capacitors and the actual little mini jack for the input here. We've also got a header. It looks like it's probably for the motherboard speaker connector, I'm guessing. There's a header connector for the speaker. I'm going to try to put that in here. That's going to be tricky. These 10 microfarad capacitors on the board are labeled with a plus sign, but these appear to be non-polarized capacitors, and they're literally the only part left, so yeah, so I'm just gonna take a shot on these, I guess. Hope they work. There's no difference in the actual lead length. I think that is all the solder type components on the board. Now I just have to load the chips in their socket and we should be good to go. And we'll start with the small ones. Looks like the notch is gonna go to the right on these, according to the board anyway. This one goes this way, and another one here. Now I'm guessing, based on the fact that we don't have the 2 chips that go in here, the SSI 263AP, those are probably for the optional stereo speech encoder module, which I guess was an add-on for the board or something that you can do with that. I'm not 100% sure, but we don't have the chips for it, so I hope that's the case. We have the Mockingboard version 2.2 is completely assembled and now installed in our Apple IIe. I went ahead and used slot 5. I'm not sure if it's specific to a slot or not, but it should work in anything as far as I understand. They did give a little bit of extra room so I could pop in a standard audio cable and run it outside of the machine, which is what we're doing for the experiment today. I am not using the normal Apple II monitor, only because the normal Apple II monitor does not have a speaker inside, so I'm actually using a Commodore composite monitor that has its own speaker and amplifier. I've connected one channel of the audio output to the television monitor, and the other one we have going straight into our capture device. The first software that I want to try today is a piece of software called Music Construction Set. This is by Electronic Arts, and we actually have a copy of this for the Apple II, as well as the Amiga, I believe, and maybe in one of the Atari systems. So this was a cross-platform piece of software that was designed for creating music, and having the multi-voice sound card with the Mockingboard should make this a much better experience on the Apple II, although I think that it may have run with the onboard sound to a limited degree as well. So we're going to try this first and see if we can get any sound out of our new Mockingboard 2.2. Will Harvey's Music Construction Set. Please press return to start. Okay. All right, it does look like this is using the joystick, or at least that's what it's showing on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the joystick around. And it does show Mach 2, which I assume means the Mockingboard 2. Printer code, I don't know. Okay, so we are using the joystick here. I wonder if they give you any songs that you can just load without having to actually write the music. Just gonna put some notes on the scale here, see if we can get it to play anything. How do I play it? Okay, so they give you a list of files on the disc that have things you can play. Yeah, so they're different files than are shown on the card. Interesting. Something loaded. It says that there are separate volume controls on the Mockingboard. Maybe I have to use the Mocking Speech version or something? So that's the internal Apple speaker. So that means something's wrong with our Mockingboard. So we switched the Mockingboard to slot 4 as slot 5 didn't seem to work. Thankfully, slot 4 does seem to be working. With this software, they give you a number of different sample tracks. Interestingly enough, this said that it was some kind of a stored demo copy. And when we looked at the catalog on the disc, there were different files than it actually showed in the reference card in the manual. So maybe that's from it just being a demo copy, I'm not sure. And I'm actually not sure which file just loaded, as there was an entire catalog of contents, and I'm not sure which one I clicked on. But we're gonna see what happens here and see what this particular piece of music sounds like with our Mockingboard 2.2. So if I click the piano icon here, there's definitely a lot of things happening there with multiple voices in the sound card. For comparison's sake, if we actually try to run this through the Apple II speaker, the built-in speaker, just to see what it sounds like, move this over to Apple, and then we try playing some of this, it's going to sound different with the limited capabilities of the onboard sound card. So the onboard sound is only capturing a couple of the voices, maybe just one. So it definitely gives you an entirely different feel to the music. You're only capturing part of the notes that are actually on screen. Let me see if we can load another song here from the catalog. Load, what's Turkey? Gotta switch this back to our Mockingboard. Let's find out what Turkey is. pretty impressive, honestly. The Mockingbird really allows you to do a lot more than the onboard sound, and I think they were really demonstrating it there on the music instruction set. Also, you could definitely spend a lot of time with this piece of software just based on the complexity of the music that we're seeing in the demos. You could get pretty crazy with this. I'm not going to today because A, I'm not a musician, and B, it looks like they're already doing a very adequate job of showing what it's capable of. But this is pretty cool, and I'm glad that the Mockingbird 2 is working out of the box after being assembled. A while back I was contacted by Dan Henderson, who with his friend Mark Golembeck actually have designed a version of Angry Birds for the Apple II. Dan was kind enough to send me a copy of this game. They do sell the game. You can buy a copy, and we'll put the link in the description if you want to check it out. I have not been compensated to play this game on the channel, but I was really interested in it, and when I saw that it needed the Mockingbird, it gave me a good excuse to go ahead and get one of those and get it built. So thank you, Dan, for providing the disc. We're going to try it out now on Vintage Geek. That's kind of funny to see the Protos from August 2016. It's certainly the newest one I've seen. System check passed. It found our Mockingbird. 8-bit shack. Kind of looks like a shack you might see in the mountains around here. We're loading. Got a little countdown. Almost there. It's an Angry Bird. Mockingbird's working. We got some music. Angry Birds. We can play. We can look at scores. I'm just going to go right into playing. Interestingly, I'm actually noticing that the sound effects themselves are coming from the internal speaker on the Apple. So they're actually making use of both the Mockingbird and the onboard sound, which is pretty clever. So we're pulling back. I don't know if I have to hit the button to send it or just let go. Well, that was way too far. Let's do a little bit less angle here. Too far still. I need to calm down a little bit, get my focus in order here. Let's try this. There we go. 36 points. All right. Nice. Now we got two things to decimate here. I'm going to try that low shot again. This is fun. Got some bonus points. These are looking good. It's really fun to see what these guys have done with 8-bit graphics and translating the Angry Birds franchise to it. It looks pretty good, and gameplay is, pretty what I would expect, honestly. It works well with the joystick. I'm on level 3 now. A little bit lower on this shot. Still working on trying to knock out these kind of 3 tiers here. Still have some more things to destroy. A little bit higher than that last one. See if I can get this. Nice. Extra 33 points, bonus of 10. The gameplay on this is solid, for a port to an Apple II. It's pretty impressive. I like what they did, especially with that kind of combination of using the Mockingbird for music and then having the sounds from the Apple speaker. It's pretty clever, and it makes it a lot of fun. Yellow Bird gives you the least damage and most points for accuracy. Red is average damage and average points. The Blue Bird has the most damage and least points. Gotta hand it to Mark and Dan. You guys did a good job on this game. I like it. I need that Blue Bird for some maximum damage. I don't think we have enough time to get through all 25 levels today on the channel, but I'm really glad I got a chance to play this game and to see something someone's created that's modern, that works with the old hardware. Being able to have the sounds and the music really adds to the game a lot, I feel like. This is a great little game, and thanks for sharing it with us here at Vintage Geek. Thanks everyone for joining us today on this journey through the wonders of the Mockingbird sound card and seeing some extra sound capabilities with our Apple IIe system. Huge thanks to our friends for sending us the demo of Angry Birds. If you want to learn more about that game, we're going to put a link in the description, so you can definitely check that out. I highly encourage, if you have an Apple II, to pick up a copy. Overall, I felt like the Mockingbird was pretty easy to build, and it made a very nice addition sound-wise to the Apple IIe. I highly recommend to pick one up.
Pick 'em up! Birds.
In the meantime, if you like video content about vintage computers and vintage technology, please like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow here at the channel and the museum. Be sure to check out the merch store. The link is in the description. We got t-shirts, coffee mugs, and accessories. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.